the Oakland A's is blaming his customers because there are only 22,000 customers per game. What, you think the people who are not going to the A's games are reading that quote in USA Today? No. They're already busy ignoring the A's. That quote is being read by his loyal fans. And they think he's blaming them for not reproducing quickly enough. Even if you're not a loyal fan, you would think this time of year where the teams are in the standings and where every game means something, people would come out. This begins to sound like the old Bob and Ray joke about the American traveling in Italy who says to the Italian, "You don't understand English, so I'll speak louder." If you're running a business, whether it's Microsoft or the Oakland A's or the proverbial popsicle stand, and your response to low customer turnout is to wonder what's wrong with the customers, you may be in the wrong business, or the wrong guy may be running your business. But everybody in sports knows that an even more primal directive is to never blame the home fans. The commissioners know this, the guys spreading the fertilizer on the field know this, and even sportscasters know this. Hello, parenthetically, I forgot it once. And boy, did I get fricasseed for it. And I deserved it. More on that later. But back to Lew Wolff and the Oakland Athletics and their nightly attendance of 22,140. There's only one mistake he has yet to make in these quotes, which is to announce that you, rich guy, feel sorry for yourself. It's depressing. I really expected the crowds to be huge this week. I had a player come up to me and say, "I feel sorry for you, Mr. Wolff. It would just be nice if people didn't wait until the playoffs to show up." Oh, boo-hoo. The Forbes magazine calculation of the value of the A's franchise as of this March is $468 million. And its operating income, essentially its profit, $27 million. And even if these numbers are exaggerations, 8 years ago, Lew Wolff and his pals paid $180 million for the team, and they can sell out tomorrow morning for at least twice what they paid. Also, Mr. Wolff's quotes imply that he thinks attendance operates in a vacuum, that there are no other factors other than on-the-field success, that geography is irrelevant, or weather, or transportation, or the fact that he's been trying to move the team to San Jose since the ink on those two F's in his last name on the franchise buying check dried. Or sewage.
Happening now at the Oakland Coliseum, a massive cleanup from a stinking mess in the locker rooms used by the Oakland A's and their opponents.
To put it delicately, after yesterday's game, a sewer line backed up into both the Oakland A's and Seattle Mariner locker rooms. A lake of raw sewage, we hear, forcing both teams to shower and dress together in the football locker rooms.
And that was the day after the first of the Oakland A Coliseum's sewage problems inconvenienced a customer who had wanted to eat one of the stadium restaurants. The place was closed because there had been a sewage backup in the kitchen. The customer was A's owner Lew Wolff. 2 sewage problems in 2 days in his ballpark, one of them directly affecting him, and he's blaming the fans. And then, of course, last month was the third toilet-related problem at the Coliseum, with Fernando Rodney of the Tampa Bay Rays getting trapped in the John in the visiting dugout. Then this week, as the old French king said, after me, the deluge.
Oakland A's will host the Angels again this afternoon at the Coliseum, hoping nothing will stink up the joint, literally. A sewage problem has reappeared at the home of the division-leading team.
Raw sewage in the dugout. We've got video for you from last night's game. You can see the A's players standing outside the dugout to avoid stepping in the backup.
Thank goodness the A's still don't have those white cleats that they wore in the 70s. Raw sewage in the restaurant, raw sewage in the clubhouse, raw sewage in the dugout, a relief pitcher stuck in the toilet. Even if you're not a loyal fan, you would think this time of year, where the teams are in the standings, where every game means something, people would come out. They are afraid of flying sewage. It's all a bunch of crap, Wolff said at the time of the first one, with no pun intended, apparently. It's a sad situation. I'm not the one in charge of raw sewage. Then again, maybe I am. Go with that. Go with, as they say, the flow. Sports owners like Mr. Wolff would be well served to remember the Yogi Berra quote that he may or may not have actually said. If people don't want to come out to the ballpark, how are you going to stop them? Well, one way is to tell the ones who did F you, and the other is flying sewage. There was one owner who had both. The Willie Mays New York Giants of the 1950s played in a 40-year-old ballpark that, according to the fan and later author Robert Kramer, quote, smelled of cigar smoke and urine. And when the New York Giants began to dicker to move to San Francisco, owner Horace Stoneham added, asked if he had anything to say to a group of boys who were weeping over the impending move, Stoneham famously replied, "I feel badly for the kids, but we haven't seen too many of their fathers around here lately." Might have been the urine. Urine, Willie Mays. Urine, Willie Mays. Tough call. Owners like Horace Stoneham and now Lew Wolff may gain temporarily from symbolically F-bombing the locals, but eventually it catches up with them. It even caught up with Al Davis. Same stadium as Lew Wolff, same plumbing. Al Davis tried to move the Oakland Raiders to Los Angeles in 1980. Then he actually moved them to Los Angeles in 1982. Then he was paid $10 million to move them from L.A. to an abandoned gravel quarry in Irwindale, California in 1987. Early in 1989, he was caught negotiating to move them from L.A. to Sacramento. Late in 89, it turned out he was negotiating to move them back from L.A. to Oakland. Then in March 1990, he announced he was moving them back to Oakland. Then in September 1990, he announced he was staying in Los Angeles. Then in 1995, he actually moved them back to Oakland. That first year back in Oakland, Davis sold out every home game in Oakland. And then, despite the fervor of the Raider fan base / biker gang, they would not again sell out every home game until 2011. By 2003, Davis had been talking about moving them back to L.A. or Santa Clara or anywhere else in Oakland. And the fact that the last 10-plus seasons, the Raiders are 50 and 112, pure coincidence, no doubt. Just as it's pure coincidence that the deal the late owner got when he moved the Raiders back in, minimal rent, not having to pay any kind of fee to help maintain the, infrastructure in the stadium so, the plumbing pipes don't burst and spew sewage all over the A's. Pure coincidence. Well, pure something. Which brings us back to Mr. Lew Wolff and the Barra maxim, if people don't want to come out to the ballpark, how are you going to stop them? And it's simple, common sense corollary. Do not trash the local fans. It's depressing. I really expected the crowds to be huge this week. I had a player come up to me and say, "I feel sorry for you, Mr. Wolff. It would just be nice if people didn't wait until the playoffs to show up." Do not trash the local fans. Do not trash the local fans.
They're really, really behind you around here.
I know. Who am I to cast stones? And in the cases of Fellini and Elia, to cast stones on consecutive nights, no less. What do I know about trashing the home crowd? I know plenty. On April 16, 1997, I went on Comedy Central as a guest of another guy who worked here last century, Craig Kilborn. He had just left SportsCenter to go host this new satirical news program called The Daily Show. All known copies of this interview have been lost in the nooks and crannies of history. I wonder whatever happened to The Daily Show. Anyway, Kilborn used to do a quiz on it called 5 Questions, and he'd ask them of you, and you were supposed to give not just a funny answer, but the funny answer he wanted. So when he asked, "What is the most godforsaken place on the East Coast?" I thought briefly, too briefly, and I thought of how much he hated living there, more than everybody else ever felt combined. So I said, Bristol, Connecticut. Oh, ha, 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 tra-la-la-la-la, how droll you were there, Keith. Guess where they didn't think it was funny? Oops. Front page. Not the front sports page. The front page. ESPN anchor. It was a joke. That was the day I discovered that the Bristol Press had one of those newspaper vending boxes on every corner in town. Though ESPN SportsCenter anchor Keith Olbermann slammed Bristol during a television comedy routine last month, he said Tuesday he meant no offense. They didn't believe that either. And I got fried. And I deserved it. Because if you're in sports, you must remember, no matter how you feel, no matter what your beef might be, no matter how correct your beef is, no matter what kind of funny you're trying to make, do not trash the local fans. Take it from me, Olbermann, with 2 N's, both of which here stand for no. To you, Lew Wolff, with 2 F's, both of which stand